Hey everybody, I'm tuning back in. My name is Claire Burke. I am a sophomore at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and today we're going to be talking about La Bandera, the national dish of the Dominican Republic. As the national dish of the Dominican Republic, this meal contains a lot of significance for the region, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Right now, all you need to know is that this dish contains rice, red beans, and meats, any meat of your choice, and is often served for lunch or dinner with maybe a salad, a side dish, usually to complete the meal. Although we don't know exactly when this dish was actually created, we know that the earliest this national dish could have existed was in the 1840s when the Dominicans declared their independence from Haiti. Alright, so we had the opportunity to learn a little bit about what this dish is all about, but how much do we actually know about where it originates? Here are some quick facts to just let you know a little bit more about the Dominican Republic. First off, it occupies the second largest island in the West Indies, La Española. That is divided with Haiti and is in close proximity to Puerto Rico. The national capital is Santo Domingo, and it's predominantly occupied by people of mixed African and European ethnicity. For some political history, the Dominicans there have experienced a lot of political and civil disorder, ethnic tensions, export-oriented booms, busts, and long periods of military rule. This has happened from Haitian occupation, a dictator named Trujillo, and military interventions by the U.S. All right, now I know what you're thinking, and we're finally there. Let's talk a little bit about what this dish really is. Starting, of course, with the ingredients. White rice, 2 pounds of chicken, 2 cans of tomato paste, 1 bell pepper, 1 large red onion, but I substituted mine with the white ones right over there, 4 cloves of garlic, some beautiful cilantro. This recipe called for pinto beans, but I probably would have preferred red beans. And with the exception of cilantro, salt, and pepper, that's really it. Those were all the ingredients. I will admit, I am no cook, and the onions started to defeat me, but I persevered, and I ended up with a pretty good meal after a lot of struggling. But it was there. Those are the ingredients I ended up mixing together. Those are the beans heating up in the pot. And I will say the base of the stewed meat, the tomatoes and onions, actually left a pretty impressive juice. And voila, there you have it, la bandera. Some important techniques to make sure that you follow is to make sure the base of that stew, the tomatoes and onions, really gets to sit, so that the juices released by the fresh tomatoes will create a delicious sauce. Another technique that I definitely forgot to do was to let the rice slightly burn on the bottom and create a thin coat all around the pan. This outer coat of dry and crispy rice is then scraped off onto the pan and served at the table. This is called conco, and at many Dominican restaurants, this is served at the tables. Not only is this dish extremely interesting, but the ingredients and the origin in which they come from is also very, very cool. It was hard to find information on just regular chicken, so I decided to look into Jamaican jerky. And it first had its roots in the Caribbean through its indigenous population. But as the English and Spanish came, the indigenous people couldn't be as mobile and autonomous in the Caribbean, and Jamaica, I mean. And as slavery progressed, this became worse. But as the Maroons, also known as people that were able to free themselves or escape from enslavement, they became in contact with the indigenous population, which taught them the culinary traditions such as jerk, and they carried that with them through their habits of running away from enslavement. Rice also has a very interesting history where it was obviously domesticated in China, but that does not mean that it didn't have a pretty significant history in Africa as well. Orza galbierma, forgive me if I'm pronouncing that wrong, also known as African rice, was domesticated and grown in West Africa as far back as 3,000 years ago. This spread to the coast and led to the creation of the Rice Coast, and eventually to Spanish colonial spread of rice to the Caribbean by African slaves who furthered the production since they were more familiar than the Europeans. And now rice plays a very important role in the economy of the Dominican Republic. Can this recipe connect us to the world? Can it show us how gendered experiences can happen in different countries? What exactly can this dish do? I think that La Bandera presents an underlying theme of freedom, autonomy, and sacrifice. The dish interacts with the world through politics, but I would argue not in the traditional sense. Instead, the country finds itself being parallel to food, and cultural traditional foods like La Bandera are historically manifestations of freedom through the history of the people and the ingredients that make up the dish. This allowance and persistence for freedom is seen through the country's political activists, the women who are the main contributors to familial food gatherings in Caribbean culture, and the adaptability, strength, and sacrifice of the enslaved people. Thank you.